Well, hello, folks. I'm LA Little, and this is your daily NeoTA wrap. We take a look at these markets, and we're doing it from a neoclassical perspective. That means each day we look at these markets and ask ourselves what happened today and what might it tell us about the coming days. I do this show 4 times a week, Monday through Thursday. It's broadcast at or before 10 o'clock Eastern Time, archived on YouTube, and it's under the channel LA Little. If you want to subscribe, reach up in the right-hand corner and do so. It's free, it's easy, keeps you up to date. Also do a show on Sunday evenings. It's a weekly view where we look at the broader market on a little longer term perspective. As far as what happened today, let's see. Nothing really. It's pretty much if you take the domestic indexes here, pretty much sideways. Really not much happened. Nothing given up. Nothing gained. Oil took a hit today. Finally, 3% down, gap down. Never did recover. We had the DAX push up again, push up over the Draghi bar from Thursday, but we had a little problem up there, and we'll take a look at that. Over in Asia, you had some push up, but still, those markets, way behind. Actually, Nikkei was up, it's down this evening, but those markets are way behind. Dollar was a little bit stronger, about four. You got the Fed coming out on Wednesday with a decision. Most people expecting the Fed's not going to say anything different than they have. Gold takes a hit along with oil, and so does silver. So a pretty big slide in some of the commodities. Everything else pretty much just stood still, like the test of time. If we take a look at the markets themselves, starting with the S&P 500, so we get a doji up here. You go over, back under. You have less volume. You've had an extended move. And this is a 2-bar reversal. And so we have our first 2-bar in quite some time. Now, actually, I'll take that back. I don't really, it's hard to call it a 2-bar. Even though you've got the angle of ascent that's very steep, you've had the little pause here. And so, if you take the pause into consideration from here, right, it's really not a 2-bar. It's just not enough of a gain in percentage in a short period of time. So I'll take it back. It is an over-under though. So you've gone over previously both the swing points, both on the daily and on the weeklies. The swing point low is what I'm talking about. So this was the swing point low retest regen, and you got over it, and you're slightly over it still. So that hasn't changed. That part of it is the same, but you got a over-under on the daily chart, and so that's going to cause probably sideways to down tomorrow on that index. If we look at the NASDAQ, right now, the NASDAQ gets over, price point was 47.48, gets and closes at 47.50, so you get over it, less volume, but you stay over it. And so that one says, hey, I can just climb on a little bit higher. NDX looks almost exactly the same, gets over it, stays over it. And then if we go to the Russell, remember the Russell traded down today. It was down the most, 0.3%, but it never even got over it. And so now the Russell has began to struggle. And remember, the Russell was the big thrust on the way up. That was all related to oil, right? So this big, strong thrust up. Now you've got the first real consolidation taking place. Volume declining on this consolidation. That's not a bad thing. So you left volume actually on this particular bar, and then you went over it and then back down. So at this particular point in time, the Russell's not alarming. It's just kind of sitting there. So that's it on the domestic indexes. So really, they say they can go higher with the exception of the S&P 500, which did struggle today. If we go over to Europe, take a look at the DAX. DAX gets up, right? Big gap up. The close today was 9990. That big Draghi bar was 9995. Big volume on it. So essentially what you've done here is you've gone over this bar, you tested it, and you closed up underneath it. That's going to try to pull back. And so with that trying to pull back, that's going to put probably some pressure on our markets. You did get over the swing point high finally, so you're going to get a trend change on that note, but it does look like this is now going to try to settle back in this big Draghi bar. And a lot of times this happens is going to probably end up some sort of a range as a result. And so that's the DAX. If we take a look at the CAX, right now, it had been stronger and it's inside the bar. It really didn't test the top. So today it actually ended up a little weaker, which is a different story than what we've seen before. And so much of the strength here, of course, is a result of the euro devaluation attempt that's taking place with Draghi and company devaluing or attempting to devalue. If you go over to Switzerland where you don't have that effect, Switzerland can't push to new highs. You don't have the QE here. You're not getting the benefit of the QE. You're still stuck in a bearish retest regenerate zone. This is a reflection of no QE, in my opinion. Part of it is a little bit of the strength of the Swiss franc, but the most of it, I believe, is a result of the fact that you don't have that carry-on effect as you're having elsewhere. If we look over in Asia real quick, not a lot happening there. You got to bump up. But remember, view this in the context of what's happening. It's just coming into a swing point low. So I don't think I would view it as anything more than that. If we walk over to the currencies, the euro I was just talking about, the euro's trying to pull in a little bit. Now this is still a big range, right? And so the issue is going to be is what happens when the Fed does what the Fed's going to do. Same thing here on the yen, same question. With that euro, with the dollar a little bit stronger today, with oil down, the gold stocks got hit, the GDX comes in pretty good. You've had a number of bars here that have been tested already, and so you kind of got this range that's starting to set up that's from about here up, and then you got another one that's underneath that one that carries you to about right there, and then one more under it. So you've kind of got ranges layering now, starting to layer here, and then we could probably redraw that. This was my first attempt at it. Let's redraw it just slightly. Looks like that's probably a little bit more accurate. And then if we pull this one up, that one's going to be into those two bars there maybe, and then the last one up underneath it. And so if we do it this way, right, you kind of got three ranges starting to layer here, and it's coming down to try to test into that range boundary. And that's going to be a big test because that is where the buyers should step up. Looks to me like you're going to see that tomorrow. And if that is true, we'll see if the buyers do show. Gold, same thing. Gold actually came in today onto that the bottom of its top range, and let me just draw that in. So the top range essentially was up here. You could extend it now that you've gotten some over the top, but that's the big bar, and that's where the range was. You got the one up underneath it, and then you've probably got another one. It's kind of hard to draw in the other one. It looks to me like you're going to have to expand these. So there's really just those two at this point. But anyway, the point is that he came into it today, tested the bottom of that bar, flipped around, closed over it. A lot less volume. That suggests to me that the gold is going to try to push back the other way. So you may get a little weakness in the morning and then probably another push. If you look at the USO as a proxy of the West Texas Intermediate, you can see the gap down. We've had a huge run here, so some sort of consolidation makes sense. On this particular chart, you've actually got a retest regen going on a bullish point. I think you have to go deeper to get that on the West Texas, but it is going to be coming back in there. And finally, if we look at the dollar of course had a little strength today, but the dollar's stuck in a big range, and we'll see if what the Fed does makes any kind of difference to what the dollar is doing. And somehow I lost my top of my chart, so let me pull that down for you. Sorry about that. So if we wrap this up and ask ourselves, what's going to happen? You've got some mixed signals tonight that suggest that we can finally get some sort of a retrace. What you don't have is you don't have congruent behavior across all the indexes. You got the DAX suggesting it's going to come down. You got the S&P here doing the same. And you have the NASDAQ index saying we can go higher. Russell's not really saying anything. If we look in the currencies, nothing much there. We've got gold coming down, look like it's going to try to flip around. I didn't show you the bonds. The bonds are really not doing much. High yield debt, all of that's still looking fine. So we still have kind of the risk on mentality, but what's going to happen is, of course, based around the Fed. You've got Bank of Japan as well. You've got the Australian Central Bank also. I believe the Swiss have some numbers coming out Thursday, if I remember right. And so you have a number of central bankers this week that can cause a lot of churn. You've had a long run higher, right? It's 4 weeks straight up. Really, you had one day down that actually closed up, a couple of little small pullbacks, right? But nothing else. Pretty much, it's been a 200 plus run off the bottom. When you get that kind of a run straight, you're going to get a retrace, and it's going to come, right? And a retrace here could bring you as far back as the swing point high. There's nothing to prevent you from coming all the way back to here. And so, you know, if you're gung-ho about this market and you think you're going to buy it no matter what, you know, just realize that if you get back under this bar, there's not a lot to stop it until you get back to this area. And so, you know, just put that in the back of your mind and realize that's the risk you're taking every time you're buying this. Now, if you got some quick fingers, it doesn't matter. But that is the scenario. You've got a long run up into the news. Just like on the Draghi news, this looks like a sell the news. If anything, the Fed's going to disappoint, being more stringent, being more, I want to say bullish, but not bullish. You know, they're going to push rates up, and they're going to advertise that. I doubt that they're going to move, but if they do, this market's going to take a hit. They're probably going to reiterate in a stronger tone that they're going to raise rates, and I don't believe the market's priced that in. I believe that's going to cause some indigestion. That comes Wednesday afternoon. So tomorrow you got another day, play around, and then hear the music on Wednesday. That's it for tonight. As always, I ask you to tell a friend or tell two. I'm LA. I'm here to help you. Have a great one. I'll see you next time. Good night.